الانتخابات بكركي كانت تأييد.
Good afternoon on this Sunday, May 25th. I'm Yumna Naufal. These are today's headlines. Pope Francis calls the stalemate between Israel and the Palestinians unacceptable as he visits the West Bank town of Bethlehem. Syria's Al-Qaeda branch stages 4 suicide bomb attacks on army positions, leaving dozens of casualties in a bid to cut off Idlib from the coast. And a divided Ukraine votes in a presidential election seen as the most important in the country's history as it battles a deadly pro-Russian insurrection in the east. Breaking news within the hour, an earthquake has struck the Lebanese coast. According to local media, residents of Beirut, Kisrwen and Jbel said they felt an earthquake which lasted a few seconds. We will bring you updates as the time goes on. In other world news, Pope Francis made his unscheduled stop at Israel's towering West Bank separation wall in Bethlehem after calling for an end to the increasingly unacceptable, he said, Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The Pope said his 3-day visit to the Middle East, which began in Jordan just yesterday, has purely religious motives, but Palestinians hope he will show support for statehood weeks after the collapse of U.S.-brokered peace talks with the Israelis. His arrival in the West Bank marks the start of the second stage of his brief tour aimed at easing an ancient rift with Orthodox Christians and speaking out in favor of regional peace. Looking tired as he arrived from Jordan by helicopter, the Pope received a red carpet welcome from local officials and priests. In a separate development, Israel's foreign ministry confirmed that 2 of the 3 people shot dead in an attack just yesterday on the Jewish Museum in Brussels were Israeli tourists. The incident has drawn condemnation from top Israeli and European officials. In Lebanon, Prime Minister Tamam Salam is lamenting on the occasion of Resistance and Liberation Day the parliament's failure to elect a president, urging officials to exert all efforts to reach an agreement over the presidential elections as soon as possible. He said, quote, "Liberation cannot be complete except with the restoration of political life to all constitutional institutions." He remarked in a statement that this can only be accomplished through the election of a president. He added that liberation cannot be complete without achieving security and fortifying the nation in light of the regional conflicts. Liberation Day is today, and it marks the anniversary of Israel's withdrawal from southern Lebanon in 2000. President Michel Sleiman's 6-year term ended just yesterday, with Parliament failing to elect his successor due to the ongoing differences between March 8 and March 14. Live with us is political analyst Carol Balouf on the line. Carol, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you for being with us. I'm going to start with the Pope's visit to the region. What do you think this means?
There's a lot that can be said about Pope Francis. His ways seem to be a little bit unconventional. He seems to be more human, if I may say, closer to the people than his predecessor. His visit has been quite significant, especially today. We've seen him stop and pray at the separation wall between that separates the West Bank from Israel. This is quite significant. It gives hope to the people in Palestine. It gives hope to the people in the region. He has also called on both parties, to the Israeli president and the Palestinian president, to meet in the Vatican, and they've both agreed. Hopefully, this Pope, for a change, can actually bring both parties to the table.
Right, we talked about the Palestinians and the Israelis. What about the Christians? This is said to be a tour aiming at easing a rift with Orthodox Christians. And, you know, right now the Christians in the Middle East seem to be particularly aimed at, a lot of them in Syria and in Egypt especially. We've seen that there's a bit of worry that maybe the Christians are being attacked, that they're decreasing in number. What do you think that this has to do with the Christians?
Of course, there is a rise of Islamism in the region, if I may say, and this automatically poses a threat. Whether they are being threatened directly or indirectly, the Christians do feel that this is a threat to them. The Pope's visit consolidates the presence of the Christians in the region. Of course, it shows that they are part of the social, the political, and the demographic fabric of the region. They have been here, as we know, for thousands of years, and I think every pope recently has been making that point to come and visit the region. Whether there are some differences between the Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church, I think this difference seems to be quite insignificant in the numbers of people, I think, who have attended the masses in both Jordan and Palestine today. And we know that there are a lot of Orthodox Christians living in those countries. So I believe that, when such a major event takes place, those small problems between different sects, I think, would be put aside in light of the bigger picture.
Speaking of Christians in the Middle East, the top Christian post in the country is currently vacant as of yesterday. President Michel Sleiman has finished his 6-year tenure, and there is a vacuum in the country and an inability after 5 meetings of the top Christian leaders to come to a decision on who should be elected president. So, as it stands today, what are your thoughts on what is going to happen in the next month alone?
Well, just to comment shortly on what you said, I think this is the president of the state, while happens to be a Maronite, should not be considered as a Maronite position. So it's not just a responsibility for the top Christian leaders to come together, but it should be a national duty on all other members of parliament to elect a president. Now, if we look at things closer, we see that there is a bloc or a party, which is March 8th, led by Michel Aoun in this case. They have been at every single constitutional turning point, or at every constitutional decision that has to be made in the country. They hold the country hostage by, setting their rules and their demands. So going to say to the Lebanese public, it's either me or no one, is one, insulting to the Lebanese. 2, is illegal, because the constitution is there to be respected with its deadlines. And the March 14 until yesterday have gone to the parliament, tried to get together and elect a president. Now, what will happen in the next month depends on the talks that both parties make with each other, whether it's March 14 or March 8. The parliamentary blocs have to get together, and we all know the significant role that Mr. Walid Jumblat plays in being the kingmaker in these situations.
All right.
So we have to wait and see.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us on the line. That was political analyst Carol Malouf commenting on the matters of the country. Syria's al-Qaeda branch has staged 4 suicide bomb attacks on army positions, leaving dozens of casualties in a bid to cut off Idlib province from the coast. The Britain-based group said that dozens of troops were killed or wounded without giving specific figures. Fierce fighting broke out in the area, pitting army troops backed by pro-regime militia against rebels and jihadists, according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. It added the Air Force also struck the area, killing 2 rebels and wounding another 15. The army controls the cities of Idlib and Nariha in province northwest of Syria, but much of the countryside is still under rebel control. Just to remind you, Ariha lies on the road from Idlib to Latakia on the Mediterranean coast, the heartland of President Bashar Assad's regime and his Alawite offshoot. Coming up next, Kim Kardashian and Kanye West tie the knot in Italy. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Future TV. Iran's President Hassan Rouhani is condemning the kidnap of nearly 300 schoolgirls by the extremist group Boko Haram in Nigeria. He said on television, state television, that they are treating young Muslim girls as slaves and they are promoting a barbaric and foolish action in the name of Islam. He said this during an address to a gathering attended by officials of Islamic Television and Radio Union in Tehran, calling Boko Haram a bunch of ignorant and misguided people who have not learned anything from the Quran nor the way of the Sunnah of the Prophet, and they haven't accepted the Prophet as their role model. He continued in remarks broadcast by state television, saying this is the first time the Iranian president has commented on the Islamist network that abducted the Nigerian girls. A week ago, Boko Haram posted a video online said to show the schoolgirls and claiming they had all converted to Islam. They have threatened to sell the abducted schoolgirls into slavery if Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan does not free detained insurgents. In other world news, Ukraine is voting in a presidential election seen as the most important in the country's history as it battles a deadly pro-Russian insurrection in the east. 36 million people are registered to vote, but separatist rebels have threatened to block polling by force if necessary in areas under their control in the industrial regions on the border with Russia. The West regards the vote as a crucial step in preventing Ukraine from disintegrating further after Russia seized the Black Sea Peninsula of Crimea in March and has warned the Kremlin of further sanctions if it disrupts polling. Ukraine's Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk has issued an appeal for voters to turn out in force to defend Ukraine in the face of a crisis that has plunged relations between East-West relations to a post-Cold War low. Protests mainly prompted by social media are occurring in Thailand's capital, Bangkok, despite warnings by the country's new military rulers. The generals overthrew the government on Thursday after months of confrontation between the government of Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra and the royalist establishment. The military began meetings with the leaders of state and private commercial organizations, senior officials of commerce, finance ministries, and business leaders. The army has also asked 18 newspaper bosses to a meeting on Sunday, presumably to receive directions on supportive coverage. Power now lies squarely in the hands of Army Chief General Prayut Chan-o-cha and his military government known as the National Council for Peace and Order. And their priorities appear to be stamping out dissent and tending to the economy. Another shooting headline in the United States. Several hundred people attended a vigil night for the victims of a rampage in Santa Barbara, California, which left 7 people dead, including the gunman himself. Elliot Roger, aged 22 years old, who posted a YouTube video calmly describing how he planned to gun down young women, went on the rampage shortly afterward in the beach community of Isla Vista near the University of California. He stabbed 3 people to death in his apartment complex on Friday night before fatally shooting 3 others elsewhere in the area, according to authorities. The gunman then apparently shot and killed himself. Surveillance video has been released, which is set to show the moment shoppers heard gunfire outside and bullets flew through the windows. This is a story that is making headlines everywhere. He is an internationally acclaimed rap artist with a reputation for looking glum, and she's famous for being famous. And this weekend, Kanye West and reality television superstar Kim Kardashian were married in a 2-day celebration of celebrity branding, bling, a blaze of paparazzi flashbulbs, and internet obsession. The world media flocked to Florence, Italy yesterday for the wedding as a private army of security guards attempted to keep paparazzi outside the walls of the beautiful 16th century fort the couple has hired. Kim Kardashian and Kanye West tied the knot at Forte di Valverde in Florence. People reported Kardashian walked down the aisle by Bruce Jenner while Andrea Bocelli sang Con te partito, and Kris Jenner was seen in the front row wiping her eyes during the ceremony. Guests reportedly broke out into applause twice during the ceremony, first when the couple kissed and then when the newlyweds were presented. This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our top stories. Pope Francis calls the stalemate between Israel and the Palestinians unacceptable as he visits West Bank and the town of Bethlehem. Syria's al-Qaeda branch stages 4 suicide bomb attacks on army positions, leaving dozens of casualties in a bid to cut off Idlib. A divided Ukraine votes in a presidential election seen as the most important in the country's history as it battles a deadly pro-Russian insurrection in the east. Here's Sunday Headlines live on Future Television in Beirut. I'm Yumna Naufal, wishing you all a good week ahead. Take care.